Every startup journey begins with uncertainty. You may have a vision, an idea, even a prototype, but the truth is, you don't yet know if your assumptions match the reality of your customers' lives. That's where customer discovery interviews come in. These conversations are not about selling. They're about listening, observing, and uncovering truths that you couldn't possibly guess from behind your laptop. Talking to users is the single most important way to move from assumption to validation. It's how you ensure you're building something that solves a real, painful problem rather than chasing a mirage. This process is not glamorous. It doesn't involve flashy decks or big investments, but it is the bedrock of a successful startup. Because if you don't know your customers deeply, how they think, what frustrates them, how they behave in the real world, you'll almost certainly build features nobody wants. Let's explore why interviews matter, how to conduct them well, and how to turn insights into action. The first reason customer interviews are so important is that they reveal real pain points. It's easy to sit in a room with your co founders and make lists of problems you think customers have, but that is still you projecting your worldview. Real pain points emerge only when you ask customers to describe their daily lives, their frustrations, and the obstacles that consume their time or money. You'll be surprised how often their reality doesn't match your assumptions. The second reason is early validation. Building products is expensive, not just in terms of money, but also in time and energy. By conducting interviews before heavy investment, you validate whether the problem is real, whether it's urgent, and whether it's worth solving. This saves enormous resources down the line. The third reason is avoiding the trap of building in a vacuum. Too many startups disappear into stealth mode, tinkering for months or years before ever showing their work to a real customer. The result is predictable. They launch something polished that nobody asked for. Interviews keep you grounded, connected to the pulse of your audience. Finally, interviews help you build empathy and trust. By listening carefully and respectfully, you not only understand your customers, you also start forming relationships. Those early connections can turn into your first testers, your first advocates, even your first paying customers. At the end of the day, a startup is built on relationships, and interviews are where those relationships begin. Now, let's talk about how to do interviews well. The first principle is to focus on the customer's life, not your idea. Too many founders walk into interviews eager to explain their product and ask, "Would you use this?" That misses the point. Instead, ask about their workflows, their routines, and their pain points. Understand their world before you try to change it. The second principle is to ask about past behavior, not future intention. People are terrible at predicting what they would do in a hypothetical situation. If you ask, "Would you use this app?" they might say yes, just to be polite. But if you ask, "Tell me about the last time you faced this problem," you get concrete truth. Past actions reveal reality. The third principle is to keep questions open ended. Instead of yes no queries, use prompts like "tell me about" or "walk me through." These encourage stories and details. They reveal context you might never have considered. The fourth principle is to listen more than you talk. Aim for the 80-20 rule. 80% listening, 20% asking. Your role is to guide gently, but let the customer do the heavy lifting. Resist the urge to interrupt or steer them back to your assumptions. The pro tip here is simple. The best insights come when you stop talking. Silence often prompts people to fill the gap, and in those moments, you'll hear the unfiltered truth of their struggles and desires. Of course, interviews can go wrong if you fall into common traps. The first mistake is pitching your idea. Remember, this is not a sales meeting. The minute you start pitching, you bias the conversation. Customers will start responding to your idea instead of sharing their real problems. The second mistake is asking leading questions. If you say, "Don't you think this problem is frustrating?" you've already planted the answer. Good interviewers ask neutral questions and let the customer's truth emerge naturally. The third mistake is relying on compliments. It feels good when someone says, "That's a great idea," but compliments don't pay the bills. Look instead for specific stories, behaviors, and actions. Did they actually spend money on a workaround? Did they waste hours trying to fix it? Those are real signals. The fourth mistake is talking to the wrong people. Not everyone is your customer. If you're building for small business owners, don't just interview your friends who work in large corporations. Focus on people who actually live with the problem you want to solve. If you fall into these traps, your entire research effort could be invalidated. Worse, you'll leave with false confidence that pushes you to build the wrong thing. Avoiding these mistakes is non negotiable if you want authentic insights. So, what kinds of questions actually work? The best ones feel like natural conversation starters, not interrogations. One powerful prompt is, "Tell me about the last time you faced this problem." This anchors the discussion in specific, recent examples. You're not getting vague opinions, you're hearing about real experiences. Another good question is, what solutions have you tried? What worked? What didn't? This reveals current workarounds, frustrations with existing solutions, and unmet needs. If people are already hacking together fixes, it shows urgency. You can also ask, how much time or money do you spend on this issue? This quantifies the pain and gives you early signals about willingness to pay. If people are already spending heavily, that's a strong validation. And finally, what happens if you don't solve it? This exposes consequences and urgency. If the answer is nothing much happens, it might not be a strong problem. If the answer is, I lose customers, I waste hours, or I get fined, then you know the stakes are high. The art of interviewing lies in making these questions feel natural, like a conversation over coffee, rather than a formal research study. The more relaxed the customer feels, the more candid and useful their responses will be. The value of interviews isn't in the conversations themselves, it's in how you turn those conversations into action. The first step is to capture detailed notes, document pain points, current workarounds, time and money costs, and emotional reactions. Don't just record what they said, capture how they said it. Tone, frustration, excitement, all of these are signals. Next, look for patterns. One interview might just be an anecdote, but where the same frustration appears in interview after interview, you've identified a recurring theme. These patterns highlight the most pressing problems to solve. From these patterns, distill clear problem statements. Instead of vague notes like, "Users don't like the process," write, "Small business owners spend an average of 4 hours per week reconciling invoices manually, leading to lost productivity and missed payments." Clear, specific problem statements become the compass for your product roadmap. Finally, use these insights to guide MVP design. The features you prioritize should map directly to the pain points uncovered. Validation tests should target the areas customers care about most, not the ones you assume are important. The recommended next step is simple. Start with 5 to 10 interviews. That's enough to uncover meaningful insights. Iterate your questions as you go, refining based on what you learn. Quality matters more than quantity. A handful of deep, truthful interviews is infinitely more valuable than dozens of shallow ones. By following this process, you transform raw conversations into a strategic asset. Customer discovery interviews become the bridge between your vision and the real needs of the people you hope to serve. Customer discovery interviews are one of the most underrated yet powerful tools in the entrepreneurial toolkit. They keep you honest, grounded, and connected to the reality of your customers' problems. Lives. They replace assumptions with evidence, hike with empathy, and risk with clarity. When done well, they reveal truths that shape your product, your business model, and your growth trajectory. When done poorly or skipped entirely, they leave you blind, building in a vacuum, destined to waste time and money. The truth is simple: the best founders are not those who imagine the most, they are those who listen the most. They know that every problem worth solving is hiding in the stories of real people, and that the only way to uncover those stories is by asking the right questions and then shutting up long enough to hear the answers. That's the power of customer discovery interviews. They're not a box to check, they're the foundation of a startup that matters.